Lovely people. Good morning if you watch me in the morning. Good evening if you're watching me in the evening. And have a good night if you're listening to me tonight. What we're going to do tonight is one of my favorite topics. My favorite topics. If you didn't know, your girl's a damn encyclopedia. And I, I I know everything. I absorb everything. So let's get it done. So New York City in the Bronx, police get a call from a couple of people that a car has been sitting there. The police show up, do their job, and leave. They're like, God, this car isn't stolen, and it's the person that has this car is going to come back and get it, right? By this time, a wife is going crazy, calling her husband in as missing. Okay, so again, managers call, please check this car out. Please check this car out. Okay. They come out. Uh, Officer jumps on the back of the car to see if anything's in there. They're like, oh, it's empty. But they call a tow company and bring it back to their headquarters where they let it melt, because it's freezing. Let it melt out for 2 hours. Okay. They go through it meticulously. They open up the trunk and they see a ceiling fan. Like, what the heck? But under the ceiling fan, they see something else. They see black hair. And they're like, oh gosh, it's a person in here. He was frozen to the bone, laying in frozen blood, and his head was stuck to a tire, you know, and they had to wait for him to melt out even more, and took everything out. Called the wife, Miss Demaeo, and tell her, ma'am, we think we found your husband. Please come down and identify it. Well, Roy had a 17-year-old son, and in those families, you know, the boys, no matter how old they are, at 13, um, you know, pretty much run the house while the father's not there. So he goes down to identify his father and just burst out crying. Okay, burst out crying. The wife is in the car, and she finally does come in. Does come in. She sees her son crying, and she's cold. You know, they see that she is just. They say that the mafioso wives don't know anything about their husbands' jobs, but her calling the police like she did and handling things like she did, she knew. She knew. So we're talking about Roy Demaeo, born in 1942. Okay, to immigrant parents. Okay, you had to get it how you lived because they were hungry. They were hungry. He didn't want to become a doctor like his mother wanted. He says in his book, his mother gave him a Bible while his father gave him like a Machiavellian book that he took a liking to. Okay. So, I mean, some family. And his neighbors all thought they were a lovely family. The father left for work, dressed to the nines, had a nice cars, didn't mess with anyone. So they were actually shocked. And this happening in the suburbs, my goodness. So little Albert grew up at 13, watching loan sharks, up and down the street, driving good cars, wise guys driving good cars, good clothes. He looks down at himself and, he's got holy shoes and, it just isn't, what he wanted it to be. So he gets in touch with his neighbor. He becomes friends with his neighbor, and his neighbor teaches him how to loan shark. Okay. So anybody who doesn't know what loan sharking is, it is whenever immigrants came here, they were treated as second class citizens and would not be able to get loans from the banks. So the mafiosos, honed in on it. Okay. They give you money. Okay. They give you money at a huge, huge ass price, guys. I mean, ridiculous. And you better pay it back because you will be in the cemetery. Your shins caved in. You did not want to miss a payment. Just put it that way. Okay. So Roy and his friend, his next door friend, they did it together until Roy was like, shit, I can do this myself. I can do this myself and I don't have to, half in the money or anything with this guy. So here he goes. He goes off on his own and he's good at it. He's good at it. A lot of the wise guys saw that if they asked Roy to do anything, he'd do it without, second guessing it, a true psychopath. This is what I think of him. If you watch Murder Machine or read Murder Machine, let me say, you guys will understand. You'll understand why I say this about this group of people. Okay. Later on, older Roy met with Chris, a guy named Chris that hated his race. And pretty much Roy took him up under his hands. Okay. He took him up under his wing. And the guy started using Demaeo, Chris Demaeo, as his last name. And you'll see why that'll be a problem. You'll see why that'll be a problem. Okay. And so what they did was they found a lounge. And well, this is after, okay, he got a few guys, the Gemini twins. He met Nino. He met Nino, and Nino put the word out about him. Hey, this kid's great. Da 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 da. I'm vouching for him. Okay. So what they were doing is this is where the Iceman comes in at as well. They were running a how do you say it? SAGs, distribution center. Okay. And got in trouble. They got busted down. So, that was that. It was over with. And then they were like, you know what? I seen a lounge for sale. Yeah. They went, bought the lounge, the famous the infamous Gemini Lounge. That's what it was named. Okay. They stopped stealing cars and things like that and got into more mafioso type of business. All right. What the mafia didn't realize is, and what Nino didn't realize is He hired a bunch of psychos that loved killing. They loved it. They loved it. They said it out of their own mouth. Once you kill or murk, once you do that, there's nothing, close to it. You could do anything. They were empowered by it. Okay, so then they, what they did was they started the Gemini way, and what that is basically they'd sit there and invite somebody over that had it coming, and you know what I'm saying, blast them in the head, and then somebody else's job is to wrap something around their head so blood doesn't get anywhere. Then they're drug into the bathtub, hung like meat. Roy used to be a butcher. He used to be a butcher, okay? And so it was just like a line. Everybody knew what to do, when to do it, okay? He chopped them up and put them in packages. I used to be a butcher, by the way. Yes, but I could never ever chop a human. I don't understand that. I don't understand that. Where he was like, "Oh yeah, that's the way to do it, guys." And so there was a couple of people that were cool that would go and pick up Paul's, because Paul was the head boss of bosses. Okay, Paul was the boss of bosses and would send different people over to the lounge, and people didn't want to go to the lounge, but they had to go pick up that envelope of money. Okay, Paul and Nino were freaking so happy because they brought in so much money doing the things that they were doing, taking over, taking over people's businesses and stuff, after them. Okay. So Roy tells this story. He loved telling this story. His story was his first was he was riding around. This guy was supposedly a snitch, for the FBI, and they're riding around. They get out of the car. Roy gets out the back seat of the car, and bam, you know, gone, you know, gone. Just because, he may have been a snitch. He may have been a snitch, when you talk to other mafia bosses and stuff like that, um, they tell you that some of the people that got weren't necessarily even rats. They weren't rats. It ended up getting just because somebody in the family said so. So they had to go. How scary is that? With friends like that? Mm-mm. With friends like that. So they're doing their thing. They're doing their thing. And the envelopes keep getting fatter. And Roy's begging Nino, hey, tell them to make me a made man. I've done everything they asked and more. And every time Nino would go to Paul would be like, no, they like too much. You know what I mean? I guess Paul had some insight to what the guys were doing, because he was like, no, not made men. Those are not the type that we want as made men. Okay. So a few years went by, packages are fatter, money, because Paul was impotent. Okay. Paul was impotent, and wanted to go. He went to like Brazil or somewhere to get a pump to please his maid, his maid lover. Okay, his wife still lived in the house, by the way. His wife still lived in the house, but he had a maid that he was, wanting to, you know. I love hearing Sammy the Bull tell how it works, because Sammy's like, that shit, that shit exists. It's just the way the bull says it, because I was surprised. I was like, what? Yeah, you just, like the band around, like you're taking your blood pressure. Yeah. And they put water. It sends water. It sends water into it. Okay. So he went down there and was able to because of Roy, because of Roy. Anyways, so he got a second no from Nino. Okay. And I guess the loving and shit had gotten good for Paul or something, because on the third time, he's like, sure, give him a sticker. Elm birthday or whatever. Take him to the basement, sticking with the pen, blah, 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 blah. Okay. So Roy's a made man. He doesn't have to do any of the shit that he used to do. But he enjoyed it so much. He enjoyed it so very much that, he would continue doing that kind of work. And I think, the vig that he was taking off the top of the money and shit was good too. It was good too. They just things started going a little rotten when Chris Demaeo, remember, his adopted son, Roy's adopted son, right? He really, really loved that boy. So Chris is like going out doing things on his own, committing crimes on his own, and got some Puerto Ricans and robbed them, straight up robbed them. And I think it was Mary Jane, like bullshit. I couldn't imagine anybody, like, I don't smoke, but I can't imagine anybody, even back then, getting in trouble for selling Mary J. Like, really? Really? Bumpy Johnson was was having piles and piles and piles of H that he was, selling, So, Paul found out about it, and the Puerto Ricans that got ripped off actually said, they came to them and said, hey, you guys need to, take care of this. Take care of this. And they were like, how do you want us to take care of this? Money? What do you want? They wanted his life. They wanted his soul. And they were like, you know what? We don't want to take your word for it. We want to see it in the news. Okay? We want to see it in the news. We want him, to where he's found fucked up. Okay? Roy was sick to his stomach. This is the first time that you see him actually show some sort of feeling. He started putting it off. And, Paul was like not happy about it. He's like, hey, Nino, you tell that boy he brought Chris in, so he's to take care of it. Okay? Nino told him. So no one knew that Roy had a bunker to hide out in, no one knew. But he went home to his family, worried. They could tell, the son said he could tell that something was wrong with his father. And it was a car pulling down their suburban nice ass street and going door to door. And he looks Puerto Rican. Okay. He knocked on Roy's door, drove down, knocked on someone else's door, whatever. And he looked Puerto Rican to to Roy. And Roy jumped in the car and chases the kid. The kid's like, oh God, oh God, oh God. I couldn't imagine. What the hell did I do? Anyways, it was a college kid, and Roy destroyed that kid. He destroyed the kid whenever the kid was just trying to pay his way through college. He looked at the news and he was like, oh my gosh. His son said he was crying. He was crying. He was like, it's something else if, we're playing the game, fighting each other, different families and stuff like that. People snitch. But, to kill a kid, I'm not going to get over that. He was hurt. He was hurt, which I'm glad that he had some humanity in him. But after he killed him, before he found out it was a kid, he took his family and they went into, his bunker place, his hideout place, right? Because he was looking all over, like, he knew if he did not take care of Chris, he would be taken care of. And that's just the way it works. Okay. So he called Chris up. He's like, hey Chris, come and join me, let's, get together and, talk to each other. So him and Chris, and a few other guys showed up and hugged each other, and Chris kissed him. He kissed Roy, and as he's kissing him, Roy, bam, on the side of the head. Right after that, Gemini twins behind the ears, bam, bam, bam. Okay, they slide him into the car, and that was the end of Chris Demaeo, right? He was messed up by that. He was messed up by that. So he took care of him. Business continued as usual. So I'm gonna say 1982, 83 happens. And Paul is like, these guys are schmilling too many people. Nino, you brought him in, you got all the FBI eyes on us, we got bugs and this and that, you need to be the one to take out, this crew, right? Especially, the main one, Roy. Nino was afraid. Okay, he gave Roy the power, and he was afraid. Let that sink in. Let that shit sink in. Okay. But then Nino got arrested. Okay, there was a pop. What no one knew is while Paul was in there, sitting there, pumping his junk up, chasing the maid around. Okay, maid. He was like, "Oh yeah. I need more cameras and this." Not knowing he's talking to the FBI, and the FBI bugged everything, and was listening to everything that was going on, all the money that was counted, who was all involved, in a school close by. So they had him. They had Paul's voice, everything. So they paid their lawyers really good, and back then it was easy in New York to find someone to pay off, a briefcase full of money, yeah, they're not guilty, right? So Nino got back out, and it was going to be Paul's turn. It was going to be Paul's turn, okay? They didn't act fast enough, okay? You'll see why. Nino actually, Nino and the Gemini twins got together and was like, yeah, well, he's got to go. He's got to go. The boss of bosses said he's got to go, so he's got to go. They get really cool with Roy, because Roy loved Nino. He trusted Nino out of everybody, probably more than his family. That's what was screwed up. He trusted him. Okay, so Nino got out the car. They're getting out the car. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Ha 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 ha. And Nino, bam, right in the temple. And then the Gemini twins, for great measures, 7 times. Bop, 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 bop. Right? Lowered him into the car. I mean, the truck. I mean, the trunk. Okay? Lowered him into the trunk. Put the ceiling fan on top of him. And left. Left his body just like that. Just like that. What Paul later said was Demaeo was gonna flip on the family. He was gonna become a witness. Something scared him so much. I think the son, talks about it. I'll have to go read the book again. His son said he was super paranoid and this. So it was a reason why, he wanted to protect his family and talk to, you heard Paul's voice saying, hey, he's going to be an informant, It was a reason why some of the cops were on their payroll, detectives and, some FBI agents were on their payroll. So that's probably how Paul knew. Okay. So that January on the 11th, because he was supposed to be going back home on the 10th of January because it was his daughter's birthday. Roy never missed anyone's birthday. He never missed a barbecue. He never missed anything. So that's why the wife went crazy, She knew her husband's moving. And if you ask me, she knew his business. She knew his business. She's like, yeah, he's not answering any pages. Yeah, pagers. Oh, I still have my pager from back in the day. It's blue. Anyways, so yeah, that's what happened with Mr. Demaeo. Mr. Demaeo. It was a group of serial killers. Please, read the freaking books. Uh, 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 they are out there, and they are better than any movie. Even Goodfellas. They're freaking amazing. Please, please, please read it. Even if you don't like reading, they have app that you can scan, and the phone will read it to you. If you want to be lazy about it. But no, I like to read my books. Because sometimes you miss some stuff when you're dealing with those kind of apps. So what happens to Nino? Nino actually gets arrested. He didn't get arrested. Hi, Mama. He doesn't get arrested for murder. Okay. He gets arrested for, you're not going to believe this, carjackings. Carjackings. Stealing cars. He got 5 years for stealing cars and died within those 5 years. Like, ain't that a B? He got a good job. he got a good he got a good damn deal, and he died. He died only for that. Only for that. I don't know what you mean, Mama. What do you mean? And so then after that, the Gemini twins were indicted. Okay. Rico starts coming up. Rico. Okay. So he got arrested for 5 years only by stealing cars. Yeah, stealing cars and crushing them. Yeah. Not all the people he killed. You know, not all the people he killed. That's why I think Nino was a fucking snitch himself. You know, I think he was a snitch himself. So how do you get 5 years when the Rico is fucking huge? All these guys, the Gemini twins, all these guys are wrapped up in all these murders, right? But not Nino, you know, not Nino. That's crazy. So, yeah, the twins get life. Okay, they get life, and they get life, and then you got Sammy and you got John Gotti. Okay, John Gotti starts getting scared because he is selling H. H is supposed to be, you know, the black people selling it, right? The black people selling it, not, them. Not them. No, Coca Cola. No, you know what I mean? Not even Meryl Jane. Okay. So they're like, oh, he's going to get us. He's going to get us. So him and Sammy find out that he is going out for dinner with his bodyguard. And in the dead of night, they pull up like they always do. And you can see the picture, his mouth is open and bop, 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 bop. Pause no more. Pause no more. Okay. So who's underboss now? Who's you know what I mean? Who's boss of bosses? Who's not wearing sweats and shit anymore? John Gotti, right? John Gotti. I believe that John wanted Paul dead just to become, you know what I'm saying, the boss. He wanted to be the big boss. And that's it. It wasn't that he was scared. It wasn't that he was scared of getting caught for selling H or anything like that. You know, he was wanting that money. Every time they dropped off, the envelopes and stuff, he saw that and was like, "Damn, man, I'm still, I'm still rocking freaking." You know what I'm saying? When does my come up? What am I gonna come up? I'm having to sell a little bit of H here, a little bit of weed here, and the family says that's a death sentence. If I'm doing that, yeah. So yeah, took him out, took Paul out, became the boss, and then he couldn't keep his big ass mouth shut. If you listen to the tapes, and Sammy is the underboss, and John is just talking. Remember when we killed? Remember where he is? Remember this? Yeah, you don't hear Sammy saying shit. You don't hear him saying anything. He's just like, shaking his head and shit. He knew it was a bug in there or a bug on him because he said John moved sloppy. He moved sloppy. Had John not been on tape saying, "Oh yeah, I'm the boss, so Sammy's gonna take the fall. Sammy's gonna take the fall." You know, he treated Sammy, like his slave. Who do you see whenever the news is covering, and who's holding the umbrella for Gotti? Anybody remember? Yeah, yeah, the bull. He didn't talk to FBI or anything, and they were like, "Oh, you don't believe that John would say that you're going to take the fall because he has to be on the street because he's the boss?" He's like, "Nah, let me hear it out of his mouth." They rolled the tape, and for sure, John was offering up his underboss, and it fucked his head up. It fucked his head up. We're supposed to be in this together, and you're having private talks saying, "Yeah, I got to be on the street. I'm the boss." So yeah, Sammy, sacrificial lamb. And I don't understand everybody. "Oh yeah, Sammy's a snitch. He's a rat. Blah 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 blah." Yeah, you guys sit in there. You will give your life away after you heard that your so-called friend, your boss that you backed up, and all of this shit is offering you up, saying, "Oh yeah, he's gonna take the fall." Yeah, nobody on this damn internet would do it. Period. Nobody would do that. Nobody would do that. Everybody was mad at Sammy, seeing his face on the newspapers and shit pissed people off, and people were mad at him for no reason. For absolutely no reason. "Oh, we like John Gotti because he would hand you money. Every time he saw you, he'd hand you money." Okay. Well, so, you know what I mean? So, I don't get it. I don't get it. It's cool as long as the dude is handing you balls of money. Right? And Sammy's the bad guy. He's a rat because he sits on the stand and tells the truth, because the guy gonna was gonna rat on him. Yeah? Somebody's gonna rat on you. You hear them saying that they're setting up to rat, you know, to rat on you. What would you do? And keep it a buck. Keep it a buck. You know what I mean? I've only known, you know, in my younger days, a few people that ever kept their mouth closed and did their time. You know, killed two people, another person killed another one. Kept their mouth shut, didn't say who knew shit, da 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 da. You know what I'm saying? They always knew to call me, and I'm like, "Dude, do not call me, because the fucking police, if they look at the records, they're gonna see that you called me and told me about this." You know? They trusted me. Everything that anyone tells me, I swallow.
Gross.
Yeah, I swallow. Pause, I swallow. However you want to take that, you take that. You take that. I've been woken up in the morning. "Hey, what should I do? Should I dig a body? I mean, dig a grave and this? The fuck are you calling me at 7 in the morning asking me about a dead body that's been on your floor?"
And yeah, 6 foot deep at least.
Huh?
And
Yeah,
yes, 6 foot
no.
deep at
I
least.
told him. I said, "Call the fucking police." You know, it is. You know, you sit there and you freaking. He tried to rob you. You know, he tried to rob you. But as a black man, that was younger and got in trouble, he was scared. He was scared. But guess who got him out of that? Don't bury it, If it's truly, if it's truly what you say it is, call him. Yeah? Your girl got my boy out of there. Your girl did. Okay? Don't ever, 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 you know what I'm saying? Be scared enough to, because you're going to get in trouble for hiding evidence and stuff. And at his age, he would have never gotten out of jail. Ever. I don't understand why people want to tell me what they do, but no one ever hears it again. No one ever hears it again. Yeah. They're like, man, you're a real one. You're a real one. Yeah. Hell yeah, I'm a real one. Hell yeah, I'm a real one. I would never, ever, ever go to the fucking popo and say anything. Anything. But anyways, that's the difference between John Gotti and Sammy the Bull. Because Sammy the Bull was going to eat the bullet. He's going to eat the bullet. But heard John's voice singing, Sammy's, I need to be on the street.
We gotta get DSR copyright.
Huh?
We gotta get DSR copyright.
Why?
For man hold up.
I don't know. Man, hold up. DSR got the game sold up. McBoys lay it down. Haters move around. We the throw this click representing detail. Hold up. Man, hold up. The game is sold up. Yeah. I've lived a very, very colorful life. That's why, when I think about, oh God, me, why am I sick? Da 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 da. You know what? I lived a great life younger. So, beautiful kids, beautiful family. So, I can't complain. And beautiful friends. Beautiful friends. And G-Man, if you're watching this, hit your girl up. I love you. God bless you. All right, guys. Fiends and Ghouls. That was the story of Roy Demaeo. Okay? Please read all the books that are out there about the guy, because I didn't even touch the surface on how wild he was. And the next story I'm going to tell you is going to be who they called the Grim Reaper. The Grim Reaper. The guy's eyeball was hanging out while he was on a monitor because he went on a hit. He went on a hit while he was on a leg brace. He is very interesting. He's involved in the Civil War. I mean, the Martin Luther King shit back in the day. Yeah, y'all are gonna see all of that. It's beautiful. It is beautiful. And he got his comeuppance too. God bless you all. Goodbye, my fiends and ghouls.